Welcome in. This is episode 15 of the Cougar Digest podcast. I am Rob Sellers, the publisher of CougarDigest.com on the 247 Sports Network. Joined as always by Kevin, Digital Dude. How are you doing this evening, Mr. Kevin?
Hey Rob, doing all right, man. Can't complain. Looking forward to next week. Have a week off.
Yeah,
Looking forward to the rest.
that'll
Hopefully, I
be
can
nice,
get some
right?
rest. But
Yeah,
yeah, it should
you
be
know
nice.
you. I'm
Looking
sure
forward
you
to it.
rest a lot, it seems like.
Yeah, I won't sleep. I won't rest, and I probably won't eat. So it'll be normal for me. Just
All
the way I
right. Well,
am, man. The way I
consistency is
am.
the way.
Exactly. I got it down.
So this is episode 15. We're coming in just kind of where we stand. This is the preview for Oklahoma State. Just a little while, we'll have on McClain Bailey from Go Pokes 247. We'll get his thoughts on the matchup, the game this weekend. Houston this is their last opportunity to make a push for the bowl eligibility, which has been discussed ad nauseum as a marker for the season. We'll dig into that more probably in the coming week. Also, basketball's kind of rolling now. They had their third game against Stetson. Another easy win for them, 79-48 for the Cougs. And then they're heading off to Charleston next for the Charleston Classic. They'll start Thursday night with Towson. Friday night, they'll have either Utah or Wake Forest, and then it depends on how everybody wins for Sunday over there. But they're kind of rolling now, looking to step it up. They step up the competition a little bit this weekend, and then, they'll come back and round out the non-con stuff before conference going in a little while. But, they're kind of starting to chug along a little bit now. Another easy win for them over Towson. Don't get ahead of yourself. Stetson was the easy win the other night. Monday night, and kind of more of the same. A little bit of youthfulness, showing the youngness of the team in November, but a lot to be positive about, and a lot to see in terms of flashes of what could be on the horizon for them.
Yeah, Stetson kept up with them, pretty much for the first half, I think. UH did pull away. I mean, it was a 31-point win, so it's again tough to complain about a win with that wide of a margin, but it's still, free throw shooting still an issue. They were Stetson came in, they were a tall team and
Yeah.
were big on the glass, getting a lot of rebounds, keeping up with them. They shot 50% from three. They hit the same amount of threes that we did. So you would think it would be a little bit of a closer game, but we took like 16 more shots than they did also throughout the game. So it was,
Right.
the game ended the way that we thought it would be, but with the way that we thought it was going to end, but it was still just, still some things that we need to fix, free throw shooting and, boxing out a little bit better, for those rebounds. But overall is a great effort, again,
Good test for that
tough to
point in the
complain about
season.
a 31-point win. Yeah. Yeah. Tough to
No, for
complain about
sure
it.
though, but it was good as it goes, and I'm sure Kelvin Sampson wanting to kind of stair step that up a little bit. You come out of the gate and you
Yeah.
play some easy stuff, get your feet under you, so to speak, and Stetson was a little bit different built team, so it was a little bit of a different challenge before they head off into the Charleston Classic, and we'll see how that one plays out. That's always fun. It's something they've become kind of known for as of late in Kelvin Sampson's era, playing these either the early season tournaments, stuff like that. I know it was kind of weird during COVID, but it's been one of those deals now that they've consistently been a part of, and that's kind of what some of the better programs in the country generally do. So
Yeah.
it kind of fits the mold, so to speak, for where they're trying to have this program at nationally. So it'll be interesting to see how they do over there. Kind of their first little taste of what could be a tournament setting type deal. Several games in just a few days. It's one of those deals you want to go ahead and get that experience a little bit early. Get them familiar with how their legs are going to feel with the brand of basketball that Houston plays when they have to
Yeah.
play, a few games in a few days type thing. That's one of those you want to at least get them a chance to feel it now, build from that, remind them, go from there, and then maybe they're just a little bit more ready come conference tournament time, and of course March Madness. So good stuff. You know what I mean? I think this is about as good as anybody could expect for basketball in terms of right now. A few games, they've been all easy games, but a lot of flashes from young guys and guys expected to have good years. So It's popular basketball.
Again, leading scorers, Cryer and Dunn, 2 new guys coming into the team. Lighting up 21 and 15 respectively, I think. And Arsenault had double digits. It was a good game overall for the players. I mean, give Stetson credit; they kept up with us for a while, but then Houston did what Houston does.
Right.
And should we think these early season tournaments was that? I mean, I know the trip to Australia was a little bit before the season actually started, but that really wasn't kind of like a tournament type of
No,
trip,
that was more of a. I feel like that was
exhibition.
More of a exhibition and more fun. That's more one of those perks of being a good, successful program type thing.
Yeah,
get the opportunity to go down there and play. Play some good competition, but also to the experience of that. I mean, the experience of these guys getting to go down there, and Kelvin and his son and all of his family, because they're so integrated in the program. I mean, I'm sure that was a tremendous time for everybody. Just the experience. How many times? Not everybody may get an opportunity to go to Australia in their lifetime.
Yeah, I haven't. Would like to go.
Yeah, let me know.
Seems fun.
Maybe if they go back, I'll we'll find a super magical sponsor that'll send us down to Australia.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, this tournament that they're playing, or this short tournament they're going to play, it's first road games also of the year.
True.
So
first games road
and they'll stay focused. I think they'll be okay, but we'll be watching them tomorrow. Right? It's tomorrow and Friday.
Yeah, we're recording Wednesday night, so Thursday night's the first game against Towson. So that'll be good. We'll have a thread running on the board, and it'll be fun. So so that's going on with hoops at the moment. Also, obviously, football's far from over. They're going to play Oklahoma State on Saturday afternoon. It's kind of win or go home, so to speak. Kind of make or break time for the team in terms of if they're going to get bowl eligible, they have to win their last 2 games. Oklahoma State comes in, very talented football team, kind of strong in a few areas that Houston is not as strong in. So there are concerns there, but maybe just maybe the game last week against Central Florida opens up a few opportunities or exposes a few things that maybe Houston might try to capitalize on as well.
Maybe
definitely I wouldn't say. I mean, it's obvious Houston's not favored coming into the game, but how it goes with this team. This could be one of those high points versus low points in the season. It's been inconsistent up and down. So maybe you get the team that comes Saturday and plays like they did against Texas. Maybe that's, they give them everything they can handle and more, so to speak. So that's kind of where it's at in terms of football. I mean, I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer, but the inconsistencies from week to week are just a little bit too obvious. And I don't think you can safely say what team's going to show up from week to week. So it could be if
you don't know. And I was going to say Vegas doesn't seem to know either. It's a 7-point spread right now, 7.5 points. I would have thought it would have been more than that.
That's only 4. Yeah, exactly. That's not a huge difference there.
Yeah,
where are they ranked right
now? Who's that? Oklahoma State?
Oklahoma State, where are they ranked after?
Oh,
yeah, they're like 15. I think they're in the teens right now. After that loss to Central Florida, they were higher up, and they dropped.
They're still second place. They're second place. They only have 1 loss in conference. They're right behind Texas
and
with that. So they definitely have a lot to play for.
Yeah, Coach Olgerson touched on that a little bit with the way the Big 12 has played out thus far. Texas obviously sitting up there at the top, but behind that, there's a huge logjam at second place, and everybody's beating everybody type thing, and it's going to get complicated before it's said and done. But Oklahoma State has a ton to play for coming in, so I would expect they'll come in fairly ready to play. Maybe looking to kind of rinse the taste out of their mouth, so to speak, from that weird loss last weekend.
That's what I was wondering. Also, they probably want to come in and have something to prove. So I would expect them to come in focused and motivated and ready to play, because they have a lot to play for. Still, they have potential at winning the conference, because I think they still have to play Texas this year, right?
Right, they still play Texas, and they've got the win head to head over Oklahoma. So Luckily, kind of for them, their losses have come against weird losses, so it's not really coming back into play in the tiebreakers. They beat the good teams, and they've
Yeah.
lost to some of the easier teams on their schedule. So, in a way, that's kind of helped them as they built their momentum throughout the season.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, speaking of Oklahoma State, maybe this is a good time to get McClain Baxley in here from Go Pokes 247. Why don't we see about getting him on board? We'll get his thoughts on the matchup and on the game on Saturday, and then you and I can kind of wrap it up on the back end.
All right. Sounds good. Let's get him in.
All right, as we switch gears here now, let's welcome in McClain Baxley from Go Pokes 247. He is, of course, the beat writer covering Oklahoma State for them, and that's our corner of the 247 Sports Network. Always good to have someone else from the network on. McClain, how you doing today?
Doing well.
I appreciate you making a little bit of time for us to cover this ahead of this game. Obviously, is kind of important for both teams in very, very different ways. Oklahoma State trying to rebound off a weird loss, kind of is the best way to put it, last weekend. And Houston, of course, at the point where now they're against the wall in terms of getting bowl eligible. So important game for both, I think, but obviously for very different ends of the spectrum. What is it about Oklahoma State coming off of last week? I know I stopped by the board and checked it out a little bit earlier this week, and just to kind of see the reaction on that. I think this is pretty much seen as one of those flukes in the weather and this and that in terms of how the game went last weekend.
Yeah, I think it's a game that both players, coaches, and fans definitely want to forget about. It's a game that nothing went their way offensively, defensively, even special teams had a couple weird snaps that didn't go their way. I mean, you blame it on the rain, blame it on the Bedlam hangover, being lost, and really not even just Bedlam, but that 4 or 5 game stretch where they had Kansas State, West Virginia on the road, Cincinnati, and then Oklahoma. That's a 5 game stretch of 5 very different teams. 3 of them very good teams, and still on the road and just exhausted after that. You got to the pinnacle, and then you had a kind of a letdown. I think that definitely fed into it, even if the players and coaches won't say that. But it was just a perfect storm that went against them. UCF, wanting to rebound as well, get a big win. It was the first, probably the biggest thing to come into their stadium. Top 15, long-standing Big 12 team going in there, and it's the space game. So really perfect storm. It's a game that everything went their way, everything went against them, and there still is a chance for them to be playing for a Big 12 championship in a few weeks. There's still things ahead of them. They can still reach 10 wins if they do make that either a bowl game or a Big 12 championship, and 9 wins regular season. I mean, everything's still ahead of them. It's just a big fluke game that I think they'll definitely won't forget about.
Yeah, definitely. And even Coach Holgerson on his Monday press conference, it was a little bit of he said it tongue in cheek, but he keeps saying the perfect storm, so to speak. And then he was like, no, literally. So, I mean, it seemed like a lot of people were tuned in on that game, and they realized how much that weather impacted that. But obviously, one of the big storylines of that is Ollie Gordon not having a game that he's basically had every game this year. So, what do you think in terms of coming off that? I think, everyone assumes that was the outlier, so to speak, and you can throw that out and expect more of the same from him as they head into what's ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, we asked Gundy on Saturday if UCF kind of gave the blueprint, whether it's for Houston or whether it's for BYU next week, of here's how to stop Ollie Gordon, here's how to stop Oklahoma State's offense. And he said, no, we're going to keep doing the same thing. Because for the past 5 or 6 weeks, it's worked. Ollie had six straight 100 yards games, many of those 150, 200 yard games on the ground, and so easily. This week they down a lineman, down several linemen as the game went on. And then obviously UCF was stacking the box and just making it incredibly difficult for him to run. They get to a point where they're down by 17, 20 points, and they have to throw it to come back into the game, and that just kind of spirals from there. So I do not expect Ollie Gordon to have back-to-back 25-yard games. I think this is a game where he can definitely rebound. And I think last week, he was coming in, he was getting Heisman praise. He was on ESPN talking about Player of the Year kind of stuff. He's kind of been the face of this program this season. And for him to go out there and against the one of the worst run defenses in the country and just stop. I mean, he had 12 carries for 25 yards, just over 2 yards a carry, which is way low. During that 6-game streak where he was, averaging 100 yards or hitting 100 yards each game, he was closer to 10 yards per carry, which is just huge, down from last week. So I don't expect him to have back-to-back, poor outings. I think he definitely feels inspired to kind of, he got hit, he got down, people are doubting him. He took a big hit in the Heisman race or, national awards, and now he wants to kind of prove himself that he still is the guy that he was for that month and a half while they were winning.
No, for sure. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Sorry, I was just just too bad he didn't wait one more week to have his worst game, of his career, whenever he faced us. Is this just life in the Big 12? Like, you have to get it, get up, get energized, and just stay motivated for every single game, or else you're just going to have a big letdown like this?
I think so. I mean, we, during that 5-game win streak had going into it, Oklahoma State players were talking about it was a revenge tour. They played Kansas State, West Virginia. These are teams that they lost to a year ago, and several of them in pretty one-sided affairs. And then you have Oklahoma, obviously Bedlam. You've got homecoming, which is a big, sold-out game. And homecoming is really big in Stillwater. So you had all these games that was easy to get for. And then you have a game on the road against UCF, not a rival, there's zero history there. And then they have this kind of game. So I think it is a scenario where, any team can beat any team. Obviously, there's teams that are definitely better, whether on paper or, have, history of more talented coaches or whatever. But I think on a week-to-week basis, any team can beat any team. And they showed that last week where, Oklahoma State at the time was number 2. They still are, number 2 in the conference, but they lost to a team that was, fighting for full eligibility. And, earlier this year, it had a 5-game losing streak, to start conference play. So this is life in the Big 12 for sure. And I think unlike, the SEC or Big 10, where you have, several teams that are towards the top that are definitively better than the rest of the conference, I think it's more, there might be 1 or 2 teams at the top of the conference that might be better than everyone else. So it's a lot more parity in this conference for sure.
Yeah, I think it makes it more fun also, is that more the games are more competitive. Well, whenever the team shows up, the games are more competitive, right? We've had a couple of those this year also, and it almost seems like half the teams have had like some sort of big letdown early on in the year also. Y'all had a loss to South Alabama. We had our loss to Rice, among other things that have gone wrong for us. Texas Tech, TCU. It just seems like everybody has just stubbed their toe somewhere along the line, to a team that they shouldn't have lost to. It's just crazy conference, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of, fellow Oklahoma State media members were kind of joking, prior to last week, if you had a 10-2 Oklahoma State team, they go in, they beat Texas and Arlington, and you have an 11-2 Oklahoma State team, you're gonna have to tell them that they can't make the playoff. They're Big 12 champions, they beat Texas, they beat Oklahoma. And then, they lost to South Alabama, a team that might not be bowling this year. I mean, it's just a crazy scenario. And that's college football, right? I mean, you have upsets across the conference, across different levels of school, but it's just been such a bizarre season for both Oklahoma State and, you mentioned TCU and Texas Tech, two teams pre-season were, expected to compete to make it to Arlington, and they're, again, they're trying to make a bowl game, much less a conference championship.
Yeah.
Yeah. With as much success, I wanted to ask you, McClain, with as much success as Ollie Gordon's had, obviously, and you mentioned the offensive line losing some guys during the game last week, but for Ollie to have as much success as he's had this year, obviously the offensive line's got to play a big part in that. How are they kind of stacked up along the line? And you mentioned some that went down. Are they down, or have they announced anybody this week or anything that's considerably been a departure due to injury or anything like that in the last week?
Yeah, so not in the last week. I mean, so Jason Brooks, he's one of the younger guys, but he's younger compared to 5 years, 5th year.
Right.
He's only been around for 3 years versus 5 or 6. But he's
speaking a foreign language to the Cougar fans right now. But go ahead.
He got injured in Bedlam, and so he missed the entirety of the UCF game, and he's probably out for the season with some kind of knee injury, we believe. And then Joe McCalskey, starting center, didn't practice all of last week, then didn't play the full game. He played for probably 3/4 of the game against UCF, but missed 10, 15 snaps on offense, and he's not 100%. Colburn, pretty much the entire most of the line has been kind of, they call it musical chairs, which was the problem in those first 3 games where Oklahoma State was struggling to find offense. They were struggling to, Ollie Gordon was a non-factor in those first 3 games because they were trying new quarterbacks, they were trying new running backs, trying different things, and After that third game, they flipped a switch, and since then, until last week, the offensive line was one of the best in the conference, one of the best in the country as far as creating holes and giving they had one sack in that 5-game win streak. They allowed just one sack for Bowman and had the production of one game. So with the musical chairs going on with different guys being in different statuses of health, it's definitely a question mark to see how Gordon can do that, how Bowman can have success through that. But I expect them to be more rested this week, and because in the second half of last week's game against UCF, it was not a win now. I mean, that game was over in the first quarter, and so they didn't. They got some younger guys got more snaps than they were expected to, and kind of giving the older guys and starters a little bit more rest. But it's definitely not the full strength that they were having in those 4 or 5 games where they were just pounding the ball as they were.
Does the team kind of? Sorry, Rob. I talk first. So does the team basically do as well as Gordon does on the field? I'm just kind of looking over some of the games. South Alabama, I think he had like 12 yards, something like that against UCF. He had 25. Is it just if he has a good day, is the team pretty much gonna win? If he has a bad day, are they gonna not do well? Is that kind of the key to the offense there?
That's been the trend. I mean, the first 3 games are just so odd because they were rotating quarterbacks. There was a 3-quarterback rotation. They were subbing out every 4 drives. And then they were doing the same thing with running back, between Ollie Gordon, Jaden Nixon, and Elijah Collins. They were rotating them. They did not stick to Ollie Gordon. They did not stick to one guy to get the majority of reps. That definitely made the offense look terrible for the first 3 games. And that in their face against South Alabama. And then the following week against Iowa State, he had a 100-yard game. He had a one, carry that went 70-plus yards or so in Ames. They lost the game. That was the first game where it looked like it was their first game having, quarterback play the full game, having Ollie Gordon play the full game, having, offense where they needed to be. And it looked like that. And unfortunately for them, it was a conference game and a game they probably could have won and maybe should have won looking back at it. But yes, this is a team that definitely goes, ebbs and flows with Ollie Gordon. He's a guy that on the sideline is just super animated, yelling at guys positively, just being like, let's go, and then he's super supportive on defensive guys, offensive guys, kickers. He's kind of the vibe of the locker room. He sets the tone on the field, on the sideline, and in pregame. So, I mean, things definitely go. It's been a trend, but I think it's definitely a trend that's accurate in far as, if he can get going, if he can keep the defense honest, and that opens things up for Alan Bowman at quarterback. It opens things up for the receivers, down the field or in the passing game, and just keeps the defense honest, which creates success for the team that wants to be balanced, but definitely has, one of the best running backs in the country in their backfield.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Coach Holgerson touched a little bit on. He obviously has a little bit of history with Oklahoma State, from when he was a coordinator there, and then also at his time at West Virginia. Oklahoma State was one of those teams similar to Texas Tech that still maintained the playing somewhat off and on with Houston when they were in the G5. You know what I mean? Oklahoma State came here a few times, and then that was actually, as I was talking about earlier, that was my first game that I actually covered Houston was 2009 at Oklahoma State when they were ranked, and Houston came in there and beat them or whatever, as crazy as that game was. So there's at least a little bit more history than, say, like Texas. In some of the other schools, Baylor, of course, they never played Baylor when they were out. So where does this land in terms of, where does it land with the fan base? Are they interested? Do they remember the days of, it's probably been a decade since Dana's come through there. So is there much connection against this Houston team? Or are they more looking to rebound and focus long-term past that?
A little bit of both. Oklahoma State just tweeted out that there's 39 guys from the state of Texas. And so that, Oklahoma State recruits Texas a lot, especially the Houston area, pretty heavily. And
we know.
I'm sure there's a ton of Oklahoma State, there's definitely a ton of Oklahoma State fans in Texas. Obviously, the Dana connection, both like you said, when he was here for 1 year with Blackman and Whedon, and then when he was at West Virginia. So there's definitely connections, and I don't know if the current players have that kind of we don't like these guys, we don't like these guys, but I think from the fans, it's definitely a team that's definitely closer, and that I know there's gonna be a bunch of Oklahoma State fans there this weekend versus UCF, or versus when Oklahoma State ends up going to Cincinnati or into West Virginia, which is farther trips and not as central to where Oklahoma State fans and where their players are from. So I think it's a little bit of both. This is a rebound. A game we need a rebound. A game we need to win to stay in competition for the Big 12 championship, and just for our fans, and not have what happened last year where they lost a big game, or lost badly in a big way, and that kind of debunked their season. Prove that they're not that way again. But it's close to home. It's close to home for a lot of these guys, and it's close to home for a lot of these fans. So it should be a pretty cool atmosphere, and a game they definitely want to win.
Coach Holkson did also mention too, in terms of the numbers of transfer portal guys, everyone's kind of feeling it now at this point after a couple of years. How has that treated them, covering Oklahoma State? How has their transfer portal needs been filled, so to speak? Has it been a success for them on what they went out and tried to get to try to plug holes?
So this time about a year ago, or I guess, a few weeks ago, or a few weeks from now, a year ago, last season they had, mass exodus, 20, 30 guys left the program. At various levels of starters, you had freshmen, you had guys that weren't going to play. I think they came out on top, truthfully. I know preseason we did a bunch of, how did they look, how many receivers did they lose, how many they brought in, how many linemen, quarterbacks, whatever. And I think over the course of the season, they kind of came out on top. They got, the starting quarterback is a guy that was riding the bench at Michigan after having success at Texas Tech. He's come in and been a good game manager. He hasn't made too many boneheaded plays. He's a veteran guy that's been able to lead this offense again, going through Gordon. They got Leon Johnson, the kid from Division II, George Fox out in Washington. He's now, stepped in as one of their leading receivers after their other leading receiver, Dejon Stribling from Washington State, came in and he got injured, the fourth or fifth game of the season, but he was the guy that was, destined to be their guy this year in receiving. So they've got guys on both sides of the ball that have come in and had pretty instant impact. Justin Kirkland, a kid from Division II, Utah State or Utah Tech, has come in and he's a 340-pound dude that's come in and just been a force on defense, as has his a kid from Tulsa, Anthony Goodwill, defensive end, that's had success. So I think they've done well. Gundy's still a guy that talks about, he still wants to recruit high school. He still wants he's not scared of the transfer portal, but understands that it's there and it's not going anywhere, and so they got to use it. And I think a lot of the reasoning behind those first games where he was playing a lot of guys on both sides of the ball, even at quarterback, was to keep guys happy, keep guys playing. So that when the time comes when they're making that decision, should I stay at Oklahoma State, should I go to the transfer portal, they're happy with where they're at. So they've I think at the end of the season, we'll look back and they won the transfer portal from last year, I believe.
That makes sense. It does. In terms of coming in on Saturday, what are your thoughts just in terms of Oklahoma State coming in? How do you kind of see this game playing out? I don't believe weather's going to be a factor that I've seen, anything like that. So just normal, actually decent day. What do you think, how this matchup lines up on from your standpoint?
I think when Oklahoma State has had success this year, they've gotten out fast and gotten out, playing on offense, getting a lead, and just kind of maintaining that for 4 quarters. I think that's going to be the case on Saturday. Whether they start with the ball and go down and score, or they get a stop on defense early and get the ball back to their offense. I think this is a game kind of back to basics. They're going to go through all the Gordon. They're going to have a couple of screen passes, have a couple of big throws to keep the defense honest, and the defense, just going to play a simple game. They talk about their quarterback. They've been playing running quarterbacks and dual threat quarterbacks all year. And so they know how to handle that. If you guys get out of the pocket, they know what to do with that. And so I think it's definitely a back to basics kind of let's just go back to who we are and play a full complete game for the first time in a few weeks. I mean, Bedlam wasn't a perfect game, but it was pretty dang close to beat at the time a top 10 Oklahoma team who has a lot of talented guys. And that was a pretty good looking game from all 3 phases. And so I think they're going to have to play another one of those, just kind of keep it simple. And head home for the last regular season. Hopefully for them, still being in position to play for a Big 12 championship.
Yeah. Last one for me in terms of what I had to talk about. Boogie Johnson obviously is the one guy that I think that the obvious carryover from last year. I know he had a few starts up there last year, but was still young and playing his way into the rotation more, so to speak. Any carryover there from the fans or any? I mean, I wasn't aware on how the terms were upon his departure, other than he was just part of that big mass exodus.
Yeah, I mean, he said he wasn't a starter here. He wasn't a everyday guy. I mean, one of the players we talked to the other day talked that they still keep in contact.
Right.
Fans are definitely more positive towards him than Trace Ford, who went to Oklahoma, or some of these other players that were starters here then left, kind of leaving that void. But I think it's amicable with Johnson, and I don't think there's been any hate speed his way.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Kevin, did you have anything else before we cut Mr. McClain loose here?
I was kind of curious how the state feels about leaving Bedlam the way that it is with Oklahoma State. Being the one-uppers
long-running series
on Oklahoma. I mean, there's got to be people in there who say we got to continue the series, right?
Well, after the game from last week, they're fine. They went out on top there.
I was just about to say, I knew where you were going.
I think on Friday, November 3rd, they would be like, "This sucks, that's ending." But now that they go on top, they're like, "Go to the SEC." I mean, they're a lot of people were saying, "Happy trails." I think I saw a comment the other day because we talked about for 20 years still, and down the road. But I saw comments like Oklahoma State or Oklahoma might have won the battle, but by winning the last battle, Oklahoma State might have won the war. Because it's the last one that they won, and the way it was won and at home, and just what a crazy day it was, and still there. Still from both media and fans and players, I'm sure there's still that longing to play the other big school in Oklahoma, but I think there's also a hatred, and they wanted to leave. It was their choice. Gundy's been very firm about they chose to go to the SEC. They chose to leave. Let them leave. We don't. We're not changing our schedule. We're not changing our ways to appease them. I feel like that's going to be the way for a long time. Both Gundy and Venables has talked about they might play in the a bowl game down the road. But other than that, I mean, it feels like this series is over in football. They'll still play in basketball every year. They'll still play in soccer, softball, baseball, I'm sure. Just because there's more games, but with 12 games in the season and Big 12 playing conference games, you're not going to blow one of those games on a game that you might lose, against an SEC team that has seen you.
Yeah.
So I think Oklahoma State fans as a whole are fine. The series is ending, especially because they went out on top.
Yeah, it's one of the unfortunate things about conference realignment is that you lose some of these rivalries that have been going on for a while. I mean, some of them are tagging along with each other, but it seems like some of them just I don't know, just one of those things that you don't like to see in conference realignment, but I'm sure everything will work itself out in the future at some point. All right, that's all I had.
Well, yeah, that's it. I think that's probably about it. McClain, for sure, I want to thank you. Go Pokes 247. Why don't you take a second and plug anything you can, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, anywhere they can find you at.
Yeah, the Twitter is just at McClain Bexley. Pretty straightforward. No spaces, no underlines. Just at McClain Bexley on Twitter. And then, like you said, GoPokes247.com. And we'll have coverage of all Oklahoma State basketball and football.
Yeah, maybe we hook you back up. You cover basketball as well or just football for them?
I do basketball as well. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, we might hit you back up once Big 12 play gets going in basketball. We're trying to do both, transition through the overlap a little bit here and
we're still all in on football right now.
Yeah, I know exactly. At least you guys have a lot to still be. I'm worried about how a lot we have to deal with the football as well, but it's in a different level soon. So we'll see how that one plays out over the next couple of weeks. But hey, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you making a little bit of time for us to give the people on here a little bit better insight on what's going on up there from Oklahoma State country. So. I'm sure we'll talk again soon, and thanks for coming on, I guess. Yeah.
Sounds good.
And there you have it. That was McClain Bexley from Go Pokes 247. We appreciate him joining us, of course, and as always, we love using the power of the 247 Sports Network in order to get the other side of it a little bit. This is one of those things I talked about early in the season, early in the podcast, about the connection now with the move to the Big 12. there's some really solid sites out there that cover the other Big 12 teams. So at times, when our Tulane didn't have a website when we wanted to try to talk to someone a little bit better about
Yeah.
teams last year. It's better this year because Big 12 teams, everybody has got a site. So it's been helpful this year, and it's been one of those things we're thankful for in terms of we can kind of take somebody's word for it that's a beat writer and sees it day in and day out, lives it and breathes it. I trust them just as much as I would trust, hopefully, that they would come to me to find out, more information, come to our site in order to find out
Right.
more information about Houston. So interesting, though. McClain brings up some good points. Obviously, with Ollie Gordon being basically as good as he's been for the last 6 games ahead of last week, it's tough to think that that's going to be the regular, and maybe that's obviously going to be the outlier for the season for Oklahoma State in terms of their rushing attack.
Right. He touched on, maybe it was the rain, maybe it was the weather. Who knows? It looks like the weather's going to be fine for us on Saturday, so it should be a good day to run the ball, and get that good footing on the field. I think you have to expect a controlled game here from Oklahoma State. Keeping the ball on the ground, obviously throwing it whenever they need to. But I see a lot of rushing coming out of this team coming up this upcoming weekend. I'm pretty sure Gundy just wants to nail this down probably pretty early and get out of there and finish up and start preparing for Texas. I think the question is which team, for University of Houston is going to be the team that shows up. I think that's going to be the bigger question.
That's true. And I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of those intangibles in terms of is Oklahoma State looking ahead? That's going to be a huge game for them. Obviously, the Texas game is going to have a lot of out. I mean, that's pretty much playing for the conference title, or at least a berth into it. But on top of that, like you said, which Houston team shows up? If it's the team that played against Texas and gave them all they could hope for, and with as much rushing as Oklahoma State's going to try to do, and Houston obviously would love to rush whenever they can. They try. Sometimes it's successful and they build off of it. Sometimes it's not and they abandon it. But, if things work out a certain way, this could be one of those fast games that goes by quick with everybody running the football, in which case it's going to limit the possessions. And obviously that kind of brings you back to the same spot that Houston was in last week with Cincinnati having such a strong rushing attack. It's going to limit your possessions if they're going to hold that ball for so long. You got to get the ball and be able to do something with it immediately. So, again, it's hard to differentiate sometimes where we talk about positive things to look into and negative things to be afraid of. So they're running hand in hand at the moment this late in the season. So it's one of those deals you just kind of see how it's going to play out and hope for the best if you're a Houston fan.
It seems to be the case. It seems like every week when we talk about playing another Big 12 team, it's about the other team's running game. This is how we got it. We have to catch up, to these other teams with their running game because ours isn't there right now, and is it offensive line? Is it just the backs that we have? I mean, it could be a combination of things, right? And hopefully we can get these things fixed in the offseason. I mean, that's got to be the focus now at this point is getting things fixed in the offseason, depending on obviously how things go this upcoming Saturday. But it seems like we're always talking about the other team's running backs and how we have to stop the other team running backs. We don't talk about the QBs, so much, but it seems like we're always talking about running backs in this league. So it's one of those things we have to get caught up on, is getting that running game down because it's obviously a key in this league. And we talked about it with McClain there also is it seems that Oklahoma State goes with how Gordon plays on the field. If he has a bad game, then it's going to be a lot tougher for them to win. But whenever he goes out for 150 or 200 yards, then it's obviously Oklahoma State games to lose. So can we or can't we at least contain the run? I guess that'll have to wait and be seen. Now, the over/under I think is around 59 or 60 points, so they're expecting some scoring in this game with a 7-point spread. Can UH keep up scoring wise with Oklahoma State when we average how many points are we averaging right now a game? 25.
I don't have that in front of me at the moment, but it's not great. Yeah, in terms of especially, I know it's been it's been on the down, trending down as of late, but I don't think it helps Houston any more either. That I don't. We haven't heard any official word, but I would be kind of shocked at this point if Chidozie plays on Saturday in the middle after re-aggravating that ankle sprain last week.
Yeah.
Jamari Caldwell's still in there, and he's back full, and he's been having some good games. And Nelson Caesar obviously being back in there helps as well. But missing Chidozie in there in the middle against a team that's going to be trying to really run the ball in a big way could be one point of emphasis, so to speak, on Saturday in terms of how well Houston can do against slowing down the rushing attack of Oklahoma State.
Be interesting game. Again, which UH team is going to show up?
Yeah, that's true. So before we cut loose and wrap it up for this episode, what are your thoughts heading into? What are a couple things you may be looking forward to Saturday in the game with Oklahoma State?
Well, one thing I'm looking for is the energy that the team comes out with. How motivated are they still at this point in the season, right? So I think one thing is to look and see just the energy that they have coming out on the field. And like you said, just some of these injuries that we have. We have a couple people out. Golden's obviously out for the year. As you said, Chidozie, I think is done pretty much. So it's how much depth are we going to see in this game? How much depth are we going to see? What's going to be the energy? It's tough for me to make a prediction score wise right now. I just nothing tells me that this is going to be a close game. But then again, it could be, according to the people out there who get paid to handicap these things. So could it be a close game? Sure. Do I expect it to be? No. And then afterwards, I think after the game, we're going to understand what's going to be going on in the off season. I think after this game.
Yeah.
I think we're going to know what's going to
right. Exactly.
Be. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's an important game. I'm also interested to see how they come out of the tunnel, so to speak, out of the locker room in the first half, how they respond, how they start, how engaged they are, how much of an impact will those injuries have. Obviously, they were without Golden last week, but it's one of those deals. I mean, he's a very talented wide receiver, so not having him out there, you would obviously rather have him out there than not. So Chidozie's injury, that'll play an impact into it as well. It'd be interesting to see as well just how how sound the team is tackling wise. You know what I mean? It's been a little bit up and down, maybe more down as of late than up, but the defense still did a pretty decent job last week for most of the game before they kind of got worn down a bit late in the process. They were hanging in there fairly well. So again, that's been inconsistent, up and down. We'll see how it plays out. They could come out and be strong in terms of tackling and open field stuff and this and that, and taking some good angles. That could be a day that they're on. So, I mean, depending on how that part plays out, it'll be fun to watch. We'll be there. We'll be checking it out. Between now and then, we'll have basketball coverage on the site for the Towson game as well as the second round game. We'll have that on the site, and then we'll follow up on those results when we do episode 16 after the Oklahoma State football game. So that'll be kind of a big one. And who knows where we'll be at in terms of the news cycle. I think everyone's kind of on pins and needles waiting to see how everything's going to play out with the coaching situation right now with these last two games. I've shared my thoughts pretty openly on the website so far, and kind of everyone's there at that same spot waiting to see how everything plays out in the next week or two tops. So it'll be fun.
Too much longer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So maybe if something crazy happens, if something crazy happens, we'll make it a point to go live as quickly as possible afterwards on the YouTube thing as it's unfolding, depending on when it comes in. Obviously, whenever, either way, to be honest with you, if a vote of confidence comes out, so to speak, at some point in the next couple of weeks that they're going to maintain what they have in the head coaching position, then we'll be there to cover that. And if it's the opposite end of that, then also we'll be there to cover that. So I think that's kind of where most fans are at in terms of football at the moment. They're kind of waiting to see just how these last couple games play out and how it impacts what's going to happen the next few months, or really the next few weeks on Colon Boulevard.
I just in my brain, I just can't see, them retaining him if he loses this week. It's guaranteed losing season, right? We're not going to get to 6 wins regardless, right?
And that was
what
going to
make a bowl game, and that was the criteria, right? That was the requirements this year.
Chris Pesman said at Big 12 Media Days that he said that their expectations for the year was bowl game, 6 wins. I mean, and I thought that was fair at the time, and I don't think there was a ton of pushback coming into the season of that being that needed to include the winning the easy ones, and they've complicated that a bit by losing to Rice. And so, if they're going to still get bowl eligible, then I mean, if they're still going to get there, they're going to have to earn it the hard way. And so be it. If they earn it, I guess we're here for that conversation to see how it plays out. But we could speculate for another hour, basically, about how it may play out in the next 2 weeks. But we'll just have to. I think it's probably more appropriate just to kind of put a pin in it, wait and see, and not get too speculative until we're sure which direction it's heading, and then we'll be on top of chasing it from there.
But speculating is fun, Rob. It's fun to guess and see if you're right later on. Isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out too, with it being an early game this week. Maybe we'll see how the potential plays out for maybe a live after show in the evening on Saturday, depending on how things are going. No promises. Sure. We'll see how it plays. That's something we'll talk about off air, and then if it can come to be, I'll make sure and blast it out on the site and on Twitter and all that good stuff to let everybody know.
Right on. Sounds good, man.
All right. Well, that is episode 15, man. Like, subscribe, share, email your cousin Eddie, whatever it may be. Anybody you know.
Cousin Eddie.
Aunt Francine, cousin Eddie. It's about time for Christmas Vacation to get kicked up again on these TV channels. So I'm here for at least once or twice this time of year. Exactly. I mean, you can't do some Christmas Vacation this time of year. Are you even American? All right, you guys.
I'm just thinking out loud.
I got you messed
out of the way.
Yeah.
I got that on the brain now. I grew up watching those.
Special episode
they're some of my favorites.
Oh man. Yeah, that's a whole nother episode. That's an off-season episode. We'll touch on that one. We'll get everybody in for that one.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody, appreciate you joining us as always. Like, subscribe, share. Check us out on the site. All those good things. And we will see you guys for episode 16 after Saturday's game.